When my sister forced my daughter to do all the housework while her kids did nothing, my silence became the spark that made her regret all. My name is Matilda, and I was married to David for 8 years. We have a beautiful daughter named Bianca, who just turned 10. She's the light of my life, smart, kind, and way too mature for her age, which unfortunately became part of the problem. David comes from what I generously call a traditional family. His mother, Patricia, believes in strict gender roles and has never been shy about expressing her opinions. His sister, Jennifer, is 2 years older than David and has always been the golden child. She has twin boys, Tyler and Mason, who are also 10, and she's raised them to believe the world revolves around them. The problem started small. During family gatherings, I noticed that Bianca was always asked to help with dishes, setting the table, or cleaning up, while Tyler and Mason got to play video games or watch TV. At first, I thought it was just coincidence, but the pattern became impossible to ignore. "Bianca, honey, can you help Grandma with the plates?" Patricia would call out sweetly while the boys ran past, leaving their dishes wherever they'd finished eating. "Why don't Tyler and Mason help too?" I'd ask, trying to keep my voice light. "Oh, boys will be boys," Jennifer would laugh. "They've been playing so hard. They need their rest. Besides, Bianca seems to enjoy helping. Don't you, sweetie?" Bianca, being the people-pleaser she is, would nod and smile, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. She was starting to internalize the message that her value came from serving others, and it made my blood boil. I tried talking to David about it multiple times. He'd nod and agree that it wasn't fair, but when we were with his family, he went silent. He wouldn't speak up when his mother made comments about teaching girls responsibility, or when Jennifer would snap her fingers at Bianca like she was summoning a servant. "You need to say something," I told him after every family gathering. "It's not worth a fight, Matilda. You know how they are. Bianca's fine, she's learning good values." Good values, or that she should accept being treated as less than. He'd always change the subject or make excuses. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags earlier, but love makes you blind to a lot of things. The breaking point came during Bianca's birthday weekend. We were staying at Patricia's house for the whole weekend, something I'd always dreaded but tolerated for David's sake. Jennifer and her boys were there too, and from the moment we walked in, I could feel the familiar tension building. Saturday evening, after Bianca's birthday dinner, the real drama began. We'd had a lovely meal, and Bianca was glowing from all the attention and presents. The kids had been playing in the living room while the adults chatted over coffee. That's when Jennifer stood up and clapped her hands together like she was addressing a classroom. "All right, everyone, time to clean up this mess. Bianca, you can start with all these dishes. There are quite a few, so you'd better get moving." I felt my spine stiffen. "Actually, Jennifer, it's Bianca's birthday. Maybe the kids can all help together. Or better yet, let the adults handle it tonight." Jennifer's smile turned sharp. "Oh, Matilda, don't be silly. Bianca needs to learn responsibility. My boys have been playing hard all day. They're exhausted. Besides, this is good practice for her." "Practice for what, exactly?" I could hear the edge creeping into my voice. "For being a good wife and mother, of course." Patricia chimed in from her chair, not even looking up from her magazine. "Girls need to learn these things early. Bianca's old enough to start pulling her weight around here." I watched in horror as Bianca, my confident, joyful daughter, slowly got up from where she'd been playing with her new birthday toys and walked toward the kitchen. Her shoulders were slumped and she kept glancing back at Tyler and Mason, who were sprawled on the couch with their phones, completely oblivious to the mountain of dishes that awaited. "Bianca, sit back down," I said firmly. "It's your birthday. You shouldn't have to clean up everyone else's mess." "Matilda." Patricia's voice cut through the room like a knife. "Don't undermine Jennifer's parenting. She's absolutely right. That girl needs to learn some respect and responsibility. You've been too soft on her, and it shows." The room went dead silent. Even Tyler and Mason looked up from their phones, sensing the tension. David, my husband, the man who was supposed to have my back, sat frozen in his chair, staring down at his hands like they held the secrets of the universe. "David," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Are you going to say something?" He looked up at me for just a second, and I saw something that made my heart break. Shame, but not shame at his family's behavior. Shame at me for causing a scene, for not just going along with it like I always did. He quickly looked away and mumbled something about not wanting to get involved in women's issues. That's when something inside me snapped. Not in a screaming, dramatic way, but in a quiet, cold way that scared me more than any explosion ever could. I stood up slowly, walked over to Bianca, and gently took her hand. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go upstairs and play with your new toys. The adults can handle the dishes." "But Aunt Jennifer said..." Bianca started. "Aunt Jennifer was wrong," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's your birthday and you're a child. You're here to have fun, not to be anyone's unpaid servant." Jennifer's face turned red. "Excuse me? I am not treating her like a servant. I'm trying to teach her valuable life skills. By making her clean up after your lazy sons while they play video games? By telling her it's her job because she's a girl? What exactly are you teaching Tyler and Mason? That women exist to serve them? How dare you call my children lazy?" Jennifer was on her feet now, her voice shaking with rage. "How dare you treat my daughter like hired help?" I shot back. Patricia slammed her magazine down. "Matilda, you are completely out of line. Jennifer is family and you need to show her some respect. Bianca should be grateful to learn from her elders." I looked around the room one more time. At Jennifer, red-faced and self-righteous, at Patricia, sneering at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe, at Tyler and Mason, watching the drama unfold like it was entertainment, already learning that they were more important than the girl their age, and at David still avoiding my eyes, his silence speaking louder than any words ever could. "You're right," I said quietly. "Family should be respected. Bianca, go pack your things, we're leaving." "Matilda, don't be ridiculous," David finally spoke up. "You're overreacting. Just sit down and let's talk about this calmly." I turned to him, and I must have had some kind of look on my face because he actually flinched. "Overreacting? Your sister just told our daughter that her worth is measured by how well she can clean up after boys. Your mother just told me I'm raising her wrong for not teaching her to be subservient. And you?" My voice cracked. "You sat there and said nothing. You chose them over us." "I didn't choose anyone. I just don't want to cause drama in my family." "What about our family, David? What about Bianca and me? Don't we matter?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. That silence was my answer. I took Bianca upstairs, and while she packed her things, I sat on the bed and made a decision that had been years in the making. I was done. Done being the daughter-in-law who swallowed her words to keep the peace. Done watching my daughter learn that her dreams and desires mattered less than everyone else's comfort. Done being married to a man who would throw me under the bus to avoid disappointing his mommy. That night, I tucked Bianca into bed in our hotel room. Yes, I drove us straight to a hotel rather than go home with David, and started making phone calls, first to my sister Lisa, who I knew would have my back, then to a divorce attorney named Rebecca, whose number I'd been carrying in my wallet for 6 months, telling myself I'd never use it. "Are you sure about this?" Lisa asked when I called her at midnight. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I said, and I meant it. The next morning, I dropped Bianca off at my mom's house. Thank God for grandparents who actually love unconditionally. And went home while David was still at his mother's, probably getting an earful about what a terrible wife I was. I packed methodically Bianca's things first, clothes, toys, books, everything that mattered to her. Then my own belongings. I left behind anything that felt like ours instead of mine. The house could keep its memories. I was making new ones. I had contacted Rebecca first thing in the morning, and she agreed to file the initial papers immediately. I left them right in the center of the kitchen counter along with a note. "David, I asked you to stand up for our daughter and for our marriage. Your silence was an answer. I won't teach Bianca that this is what love looks like. My lawyer will be in touch. Matilda. P.S. Since your family is so concerned about Bianca learning responsibility, perhaps Tyler and Mason can start doing their own dishes. It's never too late to learn." By noon, Bianca and I were in Lisa's guest room, starting our new life. David didn't call that first day. I figured he was still processing, maybe even relieved that the drama queen was gone. Patricia had probably spent the morning telling him how much better off he was without me. The calls started the second day, 5 missed calls while I was meeting with Rebecca, then 10 more while I was enrolling Bianca in her new school near Lisa's house. By day 3 he was calling every hour. I didn't answer. The voicemails started desperate and got more frantic as the days went on. Matilda, please, can we just talk about this? You're being ridiculous. Come home and we'll work it out. I talked to Mom and Jennifer. They said they're sorry if you misunderstood their intentions. They were just trying to help Bianca. The house is so quiet without you two. Bianca forgot her stuffed rabbit. She must miss it. Please bring her home. My lawyer says you can't just take Bianca like this. You're being vindictive and it's not fair to her. Please, Matilda. I love you. I love Bianca. We can fix this. I saved every voicemail. Rebecca said they might come in handy. Week 2 brought the flying monkeys. Jennifer called, crying crocodile tears about how sorry she was and how she never meant to upset anyone. Patricia left a voicemail about forgiveness and family values. Even David's brother, Mark, who I'd always liked, called to say I was breaking up the family over a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I told Mark, because he was the only one I bothered responding to. It was a pattern of disrespect that David enabled. Bianca deserves better. But Matilda, their family, can't you just forgive and move on? Mark, if your wife stood by while someone treated your daughter like a servant, how would you feel? He went quiet for a long time. I never thought about it that way, that's the problem. None of you ever think about how your actions affect other people. You just expect everyone to go along with whatever keeps the peace. Week 3 brought David himself, showing up at Lisa's door with flowers and tears. I watched from the upstairs window as Lisa sent him away with a few choice words I couldn't quite hear but definitely appreciated. Bianca was thriving. Her new school was amazing, and she'd already made 2 friends. She asked about David sometimes, but she was also happier than I'd seen her in years. She was painting again, something she'd stopped doing after too many family gatherings where she was too busy serving others to pursue her own interests. Mom, why didn't Daddy ever tell Grandma Patricia to stop being mean? She asked one night as I tucked her in. I chose my words carefully. Sometimes adults make mistakes, honey. Sometimes they're afraid to stand up for what's right because they don't want other people to be upset with them. But you stood up for me. Always, baby. That's what parents are supposed to do. She hugged me tighter. I like it better here. Aunt Lisa lets me help cook, but she doesn't make me do it. And she says Tyler and Mason should do their own dishes. Aunt Lisa is very smart. Month 2 brought the real panic. David had apparently realized that I wasn't coming back, and his family had realized that their free childcare and emotional punching bag was gone for good. The calls became increasingly desperate. Matilda, I told Mom she was wrong. I told Jennifer she owes you an apology. Please just come home, and we'll set boundaries. I'm going to therapy. I realize I should have stood up for you. Please don't throw away 8 years of marriage over one fight. Bianca needs her father. You can't keep her from me forever. I have rights. That last voicemail made my blood boil. Rights? Where were Bianca's rights when his family was treating her like a second-class citizen? Where were my rights when they were undermining my parenting and he said nothing? I called Rebecca. He's threatening me about custody. Let him try, she said grimly. We have documentation of the emotional abuse Bianca experienced in that environment, plus all those voicemails showing his increasing desperation. Any judge will see that you removed your daughter from a harmful situation. Month 3 brought the real consequences. Apparently, David had been depending on me more than either of us realized. I'd been handling all the household management, social planning, and emotional labor of maintaining relationships with both our families. Without me there to smooth things over and keep everyone happy, the cracks in his perfect family started to show. Lisa filled me in on the gossip she'd heard through mutual friends. Patricia had expected David to start bringing Bianca around more often once I was out of the picture. When he explained that Bianca was with me and wasn't coming back, she apparently had a meltdown about losing her little helper. Jennifer's marriage was hitting rough patches because her husband had started questioning why their sons didn't do any chores, while other kids their age were becoming more independent. Turns out, seeing the breakdown of David's marriage had made him take a hard look at his own family dynamics. David himself was struggling. He'd never realized how much I did to keep his life running smoothly. The house was a mess. He was eating takeout every night, and he'd forgotten his own nephew's birthday because I wasn't there to remind him and handle the gift. Most satisfying of all, Tyler and Mason were having to learn basic life skills because there was no little girl around to pick up after them. Jennifer had tried to make David enforce the same rules when Bianca was around, but he'd refused, saying it wasn't fair to treat the boys differently just because Bianca wasn't there. Month 4 brought an incident that sealed David's fate legally. Patricia tried to manipulate Bianca directly. She showed up at Bianca's new school one day, claiming to be picking her up for a surprise visit with Daddy. The school called me immediately. I'd made sure they knew exactly who was authorized to pick up my daughter. I arrived to find Patricia in the principal's office, demanding to see Bianca and claiming I was being vindictive. Mrs. Patterson, the principal said calmly, only people on Bianca's authorized list can pick her up. You're not on that list. I'm her grandmother. Matilda is just being spiteful because of some silly family disagreement. I walked in at that moment, and Patricia's face went white. There was no family disagreement, I said clearly, making sure the principal heard every word. You supported your daughter in treating my 10-year-old child like a servant while your grandsons played. When I objected, you told me I was wrong to protect my daughter from that treatment. My husband supported you instead of us. That's not a disagreement. That's emotional abuse. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The principal was taking notes. Ma'am, the principal said to Patricia, I'm going to have to ask you to leave school property. If you return without authorization, we'll have to call the police. That night, David called 17 times. I answered the 18th call. How could you humiliate my mother like that? He screamed into the phone. How could you let your mother try to manipulate our daughter? I shot back. She tried to take Bianca from school without permission, David. That's attempted kidnapping. She just wanted to see her granddaughter. She wanted to use Bianca as a pawn to get to me, just like she always has. That's not... She wouldn't. He was sputtering, and I could hear Patricia coaching him in the background. David, are you listening to yourself? Even now, with everything that's happened, you're more worried about your mother's feelings than your daughter's safety. Bianca is perfectly safe with my family. No, she's not. She's safe with me, away from people who think her value comes from how well she serves others. You're poisoning her against us. I'm protecting her. Something you should have done. I hung up and blocked his number. From now on, all communication would go through lawyers. The divorce proceedings took 8 months and provided their own form of sweet justice. David's lawyer tried to paint me as an unstable mother who'd kidnapped Bianca in a fit of hysteria. Rebecca was a fierce woman in her 50s who'd built her career on protecting women and children from exactly this kind of situation. Your Honor, David's lawyer argued, my client's wife left in the middle of the night without any attempt at communication or resolution. She's clearly unstable and vindictive. Rebecca stood up with a stack of papers. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibits A through M, recorded voicemails from the defendant showing escalating harassment and manipulation. I'd also like to present testimony from Bianca Patterson's teachers and school counselor about her emotional state and the improvement they've observed since she was removed from the harmful environment. The judge, the Honorable Margaret Williams, reviewed the voicemails with increasing displeasure. The school counselor testified about how Bianca had initially been withdrawn and overly compliant, but had blossomed into a confident child when she felt safe to express herself. Based on the evidence presented, Judge Williams said, it's clear that the minor child was subjected to gender-based discrimination and emotional manipulation in the defendant's family environment. The mother's decision to remove the child from this situation shows appropriate protective parenting. David fought for joint custody, but between the documented emotional abuse, his family's attempted school pickup, and his own voicemails showing his priorities, the judge awarded me primary custody with supervised visitation for David. The supervision was his own mother's doing during the custody hearing. Patricia couldn't help herself. She took the stand as a character witness for David and spent 20 minutes explaining how Bianca needed to learn proper feminine roles, and how I was raising her to be selfish and lazy. The judge was a woman with daughters of her own. She was not impressed. Mrs. Patterson, Judge Williams said coldly, you've just described a pattern of gender-based discrimination against a child. Your testimony has actually strengthened Mrs. Matilda Patterson's case for protection of her daughter. Patricia's face went white as she realized what she'd done. David slumped in his chair, finally understanding that his family's values weren't going to fly in a court of law. 6 months post-divorce, I got the most satisfying update from Mark's wife Susan, who'd become an unexpected ally. She'd started documenting everything after our conversation opened her eyes to the family dynamics. David is still living alone in our old house, which is apparently a disaster zone, Susan told me over coffee. I stopped by to drop off some of Mark's things, and there were dishes piled up for weeks, laundry everywhere, expired food in the fridge. The man literally doesn't know how to function without someone taking care of him. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos she'd taken. Mark said I should document this in case it becomes relevant for Bianca's visits. Look at this. Pizza boxes stacked 3 feet high. Bathroom that hasn't been cleaned in months. And get this. He asked me if I knew any nice traditional girls who might want to go out with him. I nearly spit out my coffee. Please tell me you said no. Oh, I did better than that. I told him that any woman worth dating would run screaming from a man who can't manage basic adult responsibilities. Then I suggested he learn to do his own laundry before expecting someone else to mother him. The intelligence network of wives in David's extended family had become surprisingly useful. Susan had connected with Jennifer's ex-sister-in-law, Mark's cousin's wife, and even some of the church ladies who had known Patricia for decades. They were all sharing stories, and the picture that emerged was of a family system built on the exploitation of women and girls. Patricia raised her boys to be helpless, Susan explained. She did everything for them. Cooking, cleaning, managing their schedules, even calling their teachers when they got in trouble. She was so proud of being the perfect mother that she created 2 adult men who couldn't function independently. And Jennifer learned from her. I realized exactly. But here's the kicker. Jennifer's ex-husband told Mark that she couldn't even handle being a single mother for 2 weeks without calling Patricia to come help. All those years of having other people, you, Bianca, her husband, pick up the slack, and she never learned basic parenting skills herself. The irony was delicious. The woman who'd insisted my daughter needed to learn responsibility had never learned it herself. Patricia was furious that her golden boy was struggling, and kept trying to set him up with nice traditional girls who would know their place. Unfortunately for her, most women in their 30s weren't interested in a divorced man who couldn't manage his own household, and came with a mother-in-law from hell. Susan had more gossip that made my day. Patricia tried to set David up with this sweet girl from church, Angela Miller, 28. Works as a nurse. Really kind person. Patricia kept going on about how Angela would be perfect for David because she was raised right and understood a woman's role. How did that go? Angela agreed to one date. David took her to dinner and spent the entire time complaining about you, how you turned Bianca against the family and destroyed his relationship with his mother. Then he asked if she'd be willing to help him organize his house because he'd never had to worry about that stuff before. I was grinning now. Please tell me she ran better. She told him that she worked 12-hour shifts saving lives and didn't have time to be anyone's unpaid housekeeper. Then she called Patricia and told her that if this was an example of how their family raised men, maybe she should look for a husband elsewhere. The story got better. Patricia, not learning her lesson, had tried to set David up with 3 more women over the following months. Each disaster was more spectacular than the last. One woman left mid-dinner when David asked if she'd be willing to call his mother to smooth things over between them. Another one laughed in his face when he suggested she might want to practice making his favorite meal before their second date. The best one, Susan continued, was Michelle, a teacher Patricia thought would be perfect for raising children. Michelle agreed to meet David for coffee, and David spent 30 minutes explaining how his ex-wife had poisoned his daughter against traditional family values. Michelle asked what he meant by traditional values. He told her about Bianca being expected to do dishes while her male cousins played and how you'd overreacted to normal family expectations. My heart was pounding with anticipation. Michelle stood up, threw her coffee in his face, and told him that if he thought treating children differently based on their gender was traditional, he could traditionally go to hell. Then she posted about it in the local Facebook group, warning other single mothers about him. I couldn't stop laughing. The man who'd been too afraid to stand up to his family was now facing the consequences of their backward thinking in the dating world. Every woman he met was getting a front row seat to see exactly what kind of person he was, and they were running for the hills. Meanwhile, Jennifer's marriage had imploded spectacularly when her husband Connor filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences about child rearing. He'd gotten joint custody of Tyler and Mason, and according to Susan, the boys were thriving in an environment where they were expected to contribute to household tasks regardless of their gender. Connor told Mark that the boys were actually relieved, Susan shared. They'd been getting teased at school because they didn't know how to do basic things like pack their own lunches or clean their rooms. Other kids their age were becoming more independent, and Tyler and Mason were still expecting their mom to do everything for them. The transformation of those boys gave me hope. Within 6 months of living with their father, Tyler had learned to do his own laundry and was helping Connor cook dinner. Mason had joined the school's cooking club and was teaching other kids how to make simple meals. They were both more confident and self-sufficient than they'd ever been. The best part, Susan added with a grin, is that when they visit Jennifer now, they refuse to let her baby them. Tyler actually told her last week that he could make his own sandwich, and she didn't need to cut the crusts off anymore. Jennifer was offended that her own son was becoming too independent. The family dysfunction was unraveling in ways I'd never anticipated. Patricia, who had built her identity around being needed by her children, was watching both her sons struggle with basic adult tasks she'd never taught them. David was lonely and helpless, cycling through failed relationships with women who wouldn't tolerate his learned helplessness. Jennifer was overwhelmed as a single mother, without the support system she'd taken for granted. Meanwhile, the people who'd escaped that toxic system were flourishing. Mark's family was stronger than ever, with his daughter Katie growing up confident and capable. Tyler and Mason were becoming well-rounded young men under their father's guidance. And Bianca, my beautiful, strong Bianca, was blooming into exactly the kind of person I'd hoped she'd become. The best part? Jennifer had to get a job for the first time in 15 years. Turns out, when you don't have a built-in servant me smoothing over family dynamics and a husband bankrolling your lifestyle, life gets challenging real quick. But here's where the story gets truly satisfying. 18 months after our divorce was final, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Matilda, it's Mark, David's brother, the one person in that family I'd ever respected." "Hi Mark, is everything okay? I wanted to call and apologize. And to thank you." "For what?" "For opening my eyes. When you left David, it made me really look at how we treat women in our family. How I was raising my own daughter. Matilda, I was horrified when I really thought about it." I sat down, not sure where this was going. "After you left, Jennifer tried the same stuff with my Katie that she pulled with Bianca, expecting her to clean up after her boy cousins, telling her she needed to learn to serve others. And I stopped it. I stood up to my own sister and my mother in a way David never could. My throat felt tight. How did that go?" Mark laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "About as well as you'd expect. Mom accused me of being whipped by my wife. Jennifer said I was destroying the family values. But you know what? My daughter looks at me differently now. She trusts me to protect her, and my marriage is stronger than it's ever been." I was crying and I didn't care. "There's more," Mark continued. "Connor called me. He wanted to thank me for testifying in his custody case about the family dynamics. Tyler and Mason are doing so much better with him. They're learning to cook, do laundry, treat people with respect regardless of gender. He said Tyler actually asked him why Aunt Jennifer always made Bianca do the work while they played. Oh my God. Kids aren't stupid, Matilda. They were learning that women exist to serve them, and now they're unlearning it. Jennifer is furious, but honestly, she did this to herself." We talked for another hour. Mark told me that David had finally started therapy, not because he wanted to get me back, but because he was tired of being miserable. Patricia had doubled down on her bitterness, and was now alienating Mark's family too. Jennifer was struggling as a single mother with no support system because she'd burned bridges with everyone who'd ever tried to help her. "The family is broken," Mark admitted. "But maybe it needed to break. Maybe it was toxic from the beginning and we just never wanted to see it." 2 years after the divorce, Bianca and I had built a beautiful life. She was 12 now, confident and strong, with friends who valued her for who she was, not what she could do for them. She took martial arts classes and was learning to code. When she helped with household chores, it was because she was part of our family team, not because she was female. Her transformation had been remarkable to watch. The quiet, people-pleasing girl who used to shrink when adults made demands had grown into a confident young woman who spoke up for herself and others. Just last month she intervened when she saw a boy at school demanding that a girl help him with his project while he played on his phone. "That's not how teamwork works," she told him firmly. "Either you both work, or you do it yourself." The teacher later called to tell me how proud she was of Bianca's leadership and fairness. My daughter was becoming exactly the kind of person who would make the world better. 6 months later, I remarried a wonderful man named Michael, who has 2 daughters of his own, 12-year-old Sophie and 14-year-old Lily. Our blended family worked because everyone was expected to contribute equally regardless of age or gender. Michael's girls adored Bianca, and she adored them. They were learning from each other about strength, kindness, and standing up for what's right. Michael was everything David wasn't: present, supportive, and completely comfortable with strong women and girls. When I told him about my previous marriage and what had led to the divorce, his response was immediate. "Thank God you got Bianca out of there. No child should learn that their worth depends on their gender." Our household ran on respect and equality. Sophie was learning carpentry skills while Bianca practiced martial arts. Lily was teaching both younger girls about coding while they taught her about cooking. Michael and I modeled a partnership where household responsibilities were shared based on availability and preference, not arbitrary gender roles. The girls had created their own support system too. When Lily started her period and felt embarrassed, Bianca and Sophie rallied around her with encouragement and practical help. When Sophie struggled with math, Bianca tutored her patiently until she understood. When Bianca faced bullying at school for standing up to a teacher who made sexist comments, both older girls had her back. "This is what family should look like," Bianca told me one evening as we watched Michael help Sophie fix her bike while Lily taught a neighborhood boy how to braid friendship bracelets. "Everyone helps everyone, and nobody gets treated differently just because of what they look like." David had been seeing Bianca every other weekend for the past year now. Unsupervised visits that took him 18 months of therapy to earn. He was a better father than he was a husband, probably because Bianca wouldn't tolerate anything less. She was her mother's daughter in that regard. The supervised visits had been difficult for both of them initially. David struggled to connect with Bianca without me there to facilitate their relationship, and Bianca was wary of spending time with someone who hadn't protected her when she needed him. But therapy had helped David understand the damage his silence had caused, and he'd worked hard to rebuild Bianca's trust. "Dad's learning," Bianca told me after one of their first unsupervised visits. "He asked me what I wanted to do instead of just assuming. And when I said I wanted to go to the science museum, he didn't try to talk me into something more girly." Progress was slow but genuine. David had started educating himself about gender equality and child development. He'd even joined a support group for divorced fathers who wanted to do better. The man who'd once been too cowardly to stand up to his mother was finally learning to stand up for his daughter. Last month, Bianca came home from a visit with her dad and told me something that made my heart sing. Dad's new girlfriend tried to make me help with dishes while her son played video games. I told her that wasn't fair, and Dad backed me up. He said, "I don't have to do work that other kids don't have to do just because I'm a girl." The girlfriend in question was someone David had met in his therapy group, a divorced mother named Sarah, who is also working on breaking cycles of dysfunction in her own family. Unlike his previous dating disasters, this relationship seemed to be built on mutual respect and shared values rather than traditional gender roles. "How did that make you feel?" I asked. "Proud of Dad for finally standing up and proud of myself for not backing down. That's my girl." Bianca had also started speaking up in other areas of her life. When her new school's career day featured mostly male speakers in STEM fields and female speakers in traditionally feminine careers, Bianca organized a petition asking for more diverse representation. When a substitute teacher made a comment about boys being naturally better at math, Bianca politely but firmly cited statistics proving otherwise. "She's becoming quite the activist," Michael observed with pride one evening. "She's going to change the world." "She already is," I replied, watching Bianca help Lily with her chemistry homework while Sophie practiced the guitar. One conversation at a time. Patricia still sent birthday cards with guilt-trippy messages about family forgiveness. I let Bianca decide if she wanted to respond. So far she hadn't, and I didn't push it. Some relationships are too broken to fix, and that's okay. Jennifer tried to friend me on Facebook last year with a message about water under the bridge and moving forward. I blocked her without responding. Some people don't deserve second chances, especially when they've never acknowledged the harm they caused. As for David's voicemails from those early desperate days, I still have them all saved in a folder on my computer labeled Never Again. They serve as a reminder of what I'll never tolerate in my life or my daughter's life. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled things, if I wish I tried harder to make it work, been more patient, given them more chances to change. The answer is simple. I look at my daughter, confident, happy, surrounded by people who love and respect her, and I know I made the right choice. I didn't just leave a bad marriage. I broke a cycle of dysfunction that would have damaged Bianca for generations. My daughter knows her worth isn't measured by how well she serves others. She knows that the people who love her will stand up for her when she needs them too. She knows that she never has to shrink herself to make others comfortable. That's the real revenge, not the satisfaction of watching David's family implode, though I'd be lying if I said that wasn't gratifying. The real revenge is raising a daughter who will never accept being treated as less than, who will never stay silent when she sees injustice, who will never teach her own children that their gender determines their value. I didn't just get my happy ending, I created it, one boundary at a time.